a hard time hearing, there are 4 seats right here at the front. Episcopalians, what's So I will try to fight over the cicadas. So I'm going to tell you a story this morning because we're outside and it's the end of summer. But first, there's a difference between common sense, thank you gentlemen, between common sense and gospel. We think about common sense and would like to think that Jesus thinks like we do, and that common sense is what Jesus is talking about. But if you look at what he says most often, it runs completely counter to common sense. It makes sense to do something for someone who can repay you, right? You invite me to dinner, maybe I'll come and visit you in the hospital, right? Show up at church, I might show up when you invite me over. Do a good job for your boss, and maybe your boss will let you go one day when you need to leave the work early. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's common sense. Common sense. And the same thing is taking your appropriate place. Everything that we women read about business is take the seat at the head of the table. Don't sit across the room. Don't sit at the back of the room. No one's going to tell you to come up to the front. You need to take that seat yourself. You need to be up there front and center. The gospel is not common sense. But we say the gospel is good news. Jesus has a counter message. A good news message, a message that we can live our lives differently and we will be okay. So now I'm going to tell you the story. There's an institute up in upstate New York called the Omega Institute. Anybody ever heard of Omega? And Elizabeth Lessing is one of the co-founders of that institute. Oh, I can't move. Of that, I was going to move over there so you guys can see me better. She's one of the co-founders. She's written a book called Broken Open, and this book is incredible. If you have gone through a hard time in your life, it's about how to find strength and blessing even in the difficult times. Elizabeth Lessing. And when she starts a conference at Omega, she gathers everybody like we're gathered here, and before she starts, she says, there's been a problem, and just for today, we're going to have to go to another facility. So if everybody could just bear with me, there's going to be 2 buses. They're going to take us to another beautiful setting. You know, we'll be in the park down the street. We won't be here at St. David's. We'll be on the park down the street. You're going to love it. The chairs are set up. The buses are beautiful. It's all going to be fine. So just don't worry about it. But the buses will be here in a minute. The buses are going to come, and the first one is going to have on the front of it, All American. And so those of you who never got less than an A in school, those of you who never turned a assignment in late, those of you who play a perfect golf game, those of you who are the best bridge partner, whose teeth are perfect, who have never missed a meeting. I blew 3 this week. Just to say, all of you whose teeth are perfect, who love their hair, great shoes, nails are never a mess, I want you all to get on that first bus. It'll be here in a minute. So, anybody gonna? Nobody's gonna get on that bus. The second bus is gonna have a name on the top. It's gonna be called the Bozo Bus. So you might want to get on the Bozo Bus if you have ever had a bad hair day, if you kind of cut class a little bit when you were a kid, if you kept your mother up at night sometimes worrying about you, if you sometimes trip when you're walking down the aisle, if you worry about saying the wrong thing, if you most often say the wrong thing, if you blew off 3 meetings in 1 week, kept people waiting for you in wheelchairs, all of these, if your teeth aren't just right, you might want to consider getting on that Bozo Bus. So who's going to get on the bozo bus with me? Anybody? Come on. Come on. You've gotten less than an A once, haven't you? So we'll be in good company. We'll be in good company. And the good news for us, as we hear today in the gospel, is Jesus blesses the bozo bus. Jesus wants us to be honest enough with ourselves, honest enough with each other, honest enough with Him, that we know we're getting on the second bus. We're getting on that bozo bus. And as Paul says, that's all right, because through Jesus, we have what we need. We don't have to be perfect. And honestly, if you think you are perfect, you're lying to yourself somewhere along the line, because none of us, not one of us is perfect. Nowhere. Everybody here. We would all be hiding something if we got on that first bus. The other thing is we wouldn't need Jesus, would we? If we were perfect? I'll tell you, this week I relied on the grace of a lot of very kind people. And if it wasn't for the ability to know that I am loved, even when I mess up, it would have been a much worse week for me. When we're perfect and everything goes right, we don't think much about Jesus, do we? We figure we're just doing it all really well. Everything's moving. Well-oiled machine our life is. And there's not much room. On the bozo bus, there's a lot of room for Jesus. And He wants us to know that if we are honest enough to look at ourselves, to let Him see who we are, to let others, imagine that, see who we are, to be vulnerable enough to do that, that is where the blessing is, and that is where He is, helping us, walking with us, blessing us in all of our vulnerabilities, in all of our imperfections, in all of our striving, in all of our prayers, all of the things that we try to keep ourselves together. And then maybe He'll change the sign, you know. Maybe the sign on the bus will be changed to the All Americans while we're on there, because He'll be on there with us. And I think that's the point, that He'll be there with us no matter what. So we're talking a lot about inviting people to church, and Jesus talks about who to invite, right, to His dinner. So when you try to think about who can I invite to church, I know that I'm supposed to do this. Who can I invite? Who can I bring? When you go down the list of your friends and neighbors, do you try to find the All-Americans so that everybody will be impressed by your friend, and this person will, oh, they might be a good pledger, so I'll invite them to come, or they've got a really good voice, so they would be great for church, or, oh, she's such a great baker, you know, let's bring her. She could be great at St. David's. Or do you look at the list of your friends and your neighbors and think, who really needs this? Who is broken? Who's going through a really tough time? Who do I know and love that could use a community of loving people around them to help them through whatever they're going through? I think that's what Jesus is asking us to do. And I think when churches start to think like that, that they begin to grow. Because those are the people Jesus is hoping we will reach out to and help. The rest of them probably don't need us, right? Eventually they will. But think about it when you look at the people around you, who you might invite, who might be really yearning for a community of people to support them, to love them, and to get the message that Jesus is with them as they take their place on the bozo bus. So bozo or All-American? Every day's different. Common sense or gospel? It's up to you to think about Jesus and see where He is speaking in your life. Amen.
Amen.